e-commerce brand making less than 10 million per year cannot afford to make this mistake. This is the exact problem that helped me from scaling my brands above 100K per month. But when I fixed it, I was able to scale my own brands and help many other brands, e-commerce brands, to scale their brand from 100K, above 500K, and even above 1 million per month. There are 4 steps to solving this issue, and it all starts with step number 1, which is first order profitability. So, and let me tell you a quick story about this, because there's one really not funny, but it's one example that I hear a lot and I encounter a lot. So, one of our potential clients, let's say, they became clients then also, but they're an e-commerce brand and they wanted to sell sample packs, right? Which is like a really interesting idea that is floating around in the e-commerce space, which is telling you basically to say, okay, we give you like a selection of our products in like a mini form, and you only pay the shipping, right? Or you only pay like $10 or $15, right? So what will happen then is, like, the idea behind that, I'm just going to flip this around. Oh, hope you didn't see the next steps yet. This is going to be a surprise. Oh. Okay, so the idea behind that is basically that people buy something for little money today, and then over time, they will come back over and over again, and at some point you will be making more money and more profit than you did on the first sale, obviously, right? So this is the way that you will basically get your money back. But the reality is that you're losing money on the first sale, okay? So then what I did, when I encounter this, I'm very skeptical, because I know a lot of cases that didn't work so well. So this is this kind of lie that is floating around, that you just need to get the customer into the door, and then from there, we will make the money back in 2 months, 3 months, right? And then from there, it's only profit. I'm telling you from my experience, it is not so easy. And very, very, very few brands can afford to do that. Either they have millions on their bank account and they can just like wait enough and invest enough into everything that comes behind the first sale, right? So having like a strong customer lifetime value systems and all of that stuff. Or they just want to dominate the market, right? And they already made their money. They're already super profitable. They just want to, dominate the market and get just more contacts in their target audience. But if you're starting out, and everything below 100K for me is really starting out, right? If you're starting out and you want to get to this 500K, 1 million per month, this is the last strategy that I would recommend to you, right? Because you don't really know, especially when you're new, you don't know when people will come back and purchase again. You don't know how often they will come back, then how much they will purchase the next time they come back. So this here is all a big question mark. So you cannot really trust any of these assumptions and go out and say, well, we'll just lose money on the first sale, we'll get it back later, okay? So this is where a lot of brands actually fail. And I'll tell you a story, and then I also show you how to do this, like what to do instead. So another story of a former consulting client of mine, e-commerce brand. A couple of years back, I worked with really small e-commerce brands also and helped them to scale up. And they were doing like maybe 2-3K a month, right? So very little. But they were starting out selling like an AOV, like the first order AOV of maybe like $19 bucks, right? Euro, dollar, whatever, doesn't matter. Like 20, 25 bucks maybe. So, and that's like, this is something that I also see a lot, which is really hard to do. And I did that mistake in the beginning as well. Just selling one product might look easier, but it's actually way harder to scale this up, right? Because the more you invest into paid ads, like when you're starting out and you're, I don't know, you want to scale from like 200 in ad spend a day to 500 to then 1K to then 5K and so on and so forth, at some point with a certain AOV, you will be hitting a bottleneck, right? Which means you're basically stuck. Every time you try to increase the spend, the efficiency goes down and you need to correct the spend and scale down, right? And this just means that in many cases that what you're offering is just not giving you enough space to scale. So you cannot afford enough to buy a new customer. So what we did back then, let me see here. What I did back then and what I do since then, right? In all of my e-commerces and also all the brands that I help is really to increase the AOV, right? To just sell a higher AOV. Because this gives you the ability to be profitable on the first sale. So what I essentially do, what I told them is, okay, how can we, instead of something for 20 bucks, how can we sell something for 60, right? Or then even something for 100. And every time I say that, people say, well, how can we, like, this is expensive. It's going to be way harder to sell. Plus, it's actually, like, how can I come up with something for 60 bucks or 100 bucks? I don't have that product. Two very easy ways, okay? Way number one is just sell more of the same, okay? More of the same. So if you have a product that costs, let's say, 30 bucks, instead of selling only this option, that you have like a one-pack option, I would also give people the option to buy, let's say, 3 and also to buy 6. Okay, so then instead of, let's say, normally this would be 30 bucks times 3 would be 90. And then you can say, okay, you save 20 bucks here, right? So instead of 90, it's 70. And then here it will be 3 times 6, 180. Oh, sorry, 180. Okay, and then you give it to them for 120. Example, very simple example. Actually, like pretty much something similar like that is helping one of my brands scale to like over 700K now this month. And it's that simple. It's one product. We just offer more. The reality is that if you don't give these options, people will not just like naturally say, well, I'm just going to, take 6 of those. You have to give them these pre-done options. And obviously the next step is you have to make it more attractive to buy more on the first purchase, right? And I have other videos on the channel where I go deeper into this topic, but I just want to point that out. Once you're, and I'll bring the point home now, once you're able to sell something for 70 or 120, it might be that before, let's say, your cost per acquisition was 20, maybe your cost per acquisition goes up now and it costs, let's say, 28. It's a little bit more expensive. But still, it will be worth it, right? Still, you will end up with more profit than if you just sell one item, right? So that's the whole magic behind having a first order profitability, right? So number one, your offer has to be enough AOV so that you're able to afford more for a new customer, right? So this also protects you when you look into the future, because the more you spend, the more you will be able, like the higher your CPA will be. You have to assume that, right? So this already gives you some headroom when it comes to scaling. Now the second part of that, like number one, obviously higher AOV. Okay, this is something that, you know, makes sense. But then the second part to being first order profitable is that you also are going away from what everybody else is doing, okay? So what I see, and I'll show you just an example of that. So you want to be where most of the brands are. You don't want to be where most of the brands are. You want to do what the most successful brands are doing. And this is like, I'm going to talk a little bit about funnels, okay? So what most of the brands are doing is they have their ad, and this ad is going to the product page, okay? PDP. That's pretty much what almost all of the brands are doing. This is fine if you're selling like a single product, but this is not what we want to do. We want to get ahead of all the other competitors and be able to sell something that is of higher value so that we have more room when it comes to the CPA. So that's why we need to have a little bit more complexity when it comes to the funnel, but this will enable us to just outperform all the competitors, okay? So the next thing, this is what I would say 1% of the brands are doing is, okay, I'll explain this. And then you go to the PDP. Is basically, you have your ad, you send to an educational page, and then you send to the PDP, okay? What is this educational page? So you might be saying, well, we're increasing the length of the funnel, Marcus. Why? Like this will lead to like lower conversion rates, no? Like it's just a longer path for people to purchase. And I say, yes, it might be, it is definitely a longer funnel, but it's also necessary in order to sell a higher value product, right? Remember, we're not selling what everybody else is selling. So we need to adjust our funnel so that we actually hype people up on our product, on the value of the product. So this is where we explain the value, okay? And this is where we explain basically the price, the offer, okay? So what does it cost exactly? This is what stays on the product page. But between the ad and the product page, we slide in an educational page. This could be something like a listicle, like 5 reasons why this product helped people like you to resolve pain point XYZ, right? Or just a landing page that explains what this product is doing, how it's helping you solve your pain points, and then we send to the product page. Important, what I teach brands and what I also do in my own brands, I don't put the price here, okay? Because I want people that are interested in this to click through and see the price on the product page, right? So this is literally like a gate, right? It's as if you would have like a physical store and somebody has to go through some pre-education to understand what's behind, to understand the value of your product, and then they would be able to see the price, okay? So this is already good. What's even better is if you have this here, all the above, you have an educational landing page. This also could be an advertorial, right? PDP. And then what you have is basically basically upsells, right? Upsells and downsells, right? Upsells and downsells. So this is what even fewer brands are doing, but that's something that enables you to increase the first order value even more. So what do you do here? It's basically after the purchase, okay? So the purchase happens here. After the purchase, you give them a one-time opportunity to purchase, for example, more of the same at a lesser price, right? Because you already got the purchase, and then everything that comes behind that cannot affect your conversion rate. They already did the purchase, right? But there you can just increase the first time order value even more, right? When you have, for example, you have an offer of like buy 3 more and only pay for 2, right? Which might be too aggressive as the first order, but as you've collected the sale already here, your cost per acquisition will not change here, right? So it's all basically added revenue and profit, okay? So these are 3 levels, let's say, to make sure that your first order profitable, plus obviously increasing the AOV on the first sale. Okay, alrighty. Then step number 2. Give me a second. I hope you're taking notes. Whoa, I hope you're taking notes. And bombard me with questions in the comments. Happy to answer all of them. Okay, so step number 2. Now we're first order profitable, or we have the infrastructure to do so. Step number 2, 1 push channel and 1 pull channel. So let me tell you a quick story about this. I had a client, like before I started to do my own e-commerce brands, and also like coach brands and founders to build their own teams and to basically do all of this without an agency. I obviously, got my hands dirty initially and, helped brands and did all of that stuff for brands, right? So one of the clients there, I remembered well, he was really like constantly asking about, okay, what do you think about Pinterest? What do you think about TikTok? What do you think about like native ads? Should we run native ads? And the reality was that he did not even crack one channel, one solid push channel, and was already in this, let's say, shiny new object syndrome of new channels, right? And that's like, you hear this like everywhere, right? Where brands say, well, this brand scaled on Pinterest. This brand scaled on TikTok. Why don't we do TikTok? Why don't we do Pinterest? But that's not the question. This is not the right question. So especially when you're, let's say, below this 500K, even below the 1 million per month, you really have no business of like having multiple channels, and you don't need multiple channels to get there. To get to 1 million or 10 million a year, you need one solid product offer, you need one target audience, and you need one channel. That's it. One main push channel. And like one maybe example about this, one of my mentors told me a couple of years back, and reminded me obviously of that, is that when you're building something, and we're building something here, right? So you and your e-commerce, you're building something. When we're building something, our business, we always have 100% energy, right? This is our energy that we have available. Energy, resources, time, right? All the efforts. So there are different ways to approach success, but the one that most of the brands do, or most of the people in general do, is they open up 10 different construction sites, okay? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, okay? And they invest their 100% into 10 different buckets, right? But the problem with that is, and you can replace these 10 construction sites with 10 different client acquisition channels, 10 different channels finally, right? So is it Is it email? Is it TikTok, Pinterest, right? Meta, Google. What I want to say here is that this here is not going to get you far, right? Because you're spreading yourselves super thin, right? You spread your attention and your efforts on multiple things at the same time. And trust me, like I've helped like over 50 brands now. I have 3 brands that I scale by myself, right? That I'm owner or part owner of. And this strategy here will just lose you a lot of time, money, effort, and finally you will be frustrated, right? So all these successful projects, what you do is you take your 100% and you have one push channel and one pull channel. And you put, honestly, 95% of your time into the push channel and 5% into the pull channel. I'm going to tell you which channels these are. In 98% of the time, this here is Meta. And this here is Google. Very, very simple. You have to think like all of your competitors are doing the above. Most of your competitors are going to do this, right? They're going to be distracted by different channels. They're going to try to make something work on TikTok while they're trying to make something work on Meta, while they do some tests on Pinterest. But the problem with that is that every single push channel is different in itself. It needs different types of creatives. It needs a different creative process. It needs potentially different media buying, right? So those are all complexities that you're adding before even getting to at least $1 million a month. So with this, as I said, you only can do 10% here, or maybe 20% if it's 5, right? But compare this 20% or 10% to the 95% of focus that a brand has that says, no. We are not going to mess with all these other channels. We're going to put all our effort into Meta until we get this brand to $1 million a month. We do a little bit of pull channel in Google just to basically take the attention that we create, the buzz that we create on Meta, that we make sure that we collect this in Google with running brand campaigns, simple PMAXs, some shopping campaigns, very simple setup. Like I teach all of this to brands, and it's literally simple. But the hardest part is to let go of all of these, shiny new objects and channels. So the way is really to focus on this one channel, which is Meta for the most of the people, most of the brands, and get this to scale. To scale this thing to 500K a month, at least, even $1 million a month. And that's then where you can say, okay, now we maxed out Meta. I mean, it's hard to max out Meta because it's still the most scalable channel of all of these. Again, for most of the brands. But once you are at a level here where you have very predictable results in the sense of you're putting in 300K a month and XYZ is coming out. Plus you have the systems, the team to just continue to grow on that channel, and it gets boring, then you can say, okay, let's now look for another push channel, the second push channel that we can add. For us, is it TikTok? Is it Pinterest, right? Is it potentially Google? Google can also be a push channel, right? So, but then you already have this asset here, and you don't have to take away attention from something that is not yet working, okay? So big point, don't get distracted by all of this stuff. Invest your time and energy. Where is it? Whoa, my goodness. Here it is. Almost dying here. for you, for you guys to bring that point home. So don't be this guy. Don't be this guy. It's not only in e-com. It's not only when I talk about channels. In general, this is just it's going to take forever, and most likely you're never going to arrive at these 1 million a month, or even close to that, let's say, because you're just too distracted. Okay, so that was the second point. One push channel, one pull channel. Don't get distracted. Okay. Now, the third point is test and validate instead of guessing. Okay. Test and validate instead of guessing. What do I mean by that? Now, one thing, or let's say one thing that I hear over and over again is especially brands that, like a lot of brands that come to me and want to work with me and want me to, basically mentor them, consult them on their way to 1 million a month, or even some brands that are at 1 million a month and just want to make this through other channels and want to scale on Meta now, on Google, or just want to take things in-house and they want to pay, 40 grand a month for an agency for stuff that they can do by themselves. So I help them with that. But a lot of the times in these conversations, I hear things like, basically, like the agencies that we work with, they're just like throwing a bunch of ads at Facebook and see what sticks. Okay, so this is one way to try to make it. But in my experience, this is actually a very inefficient way. Okay, so obviously you can make it work with the strategy, which means you just throw a bunch of ads at Facebook or whatever platform is your push channel, and then maybe 1% of this makes it. Okay, so this is, doesn't mean that it doesn't work, but me as a business owner, I'm thinking more like an investor, right? So if your creative hit rate, meaning like your creative winning rate, is 1%, this shows me that you're not putting in enough effort into researching and then validating and then testing creatives, because everybody can do that. The problem is it's super expensive. You have to think, especially if and then most of them, they're doing UGC, and then you're paying $200 for one video, right? I mean, you potentially have to test 100 creatives or 200 creatives until you find a winning formula. Do the math. That's a lot of money, right? 200 is actually maybe not even a lot, right? And then if you don't if you don't operate with let's say strategy in mind, where you have an iterative process on how to get there and how to find winning creatives, then this just happens over and over again. So you start every single month doing the same thing over again, all over again, right? So, okay, we need 20 creatives this month. Okay, let's do 20 creatives. Let's see what sticks. Then something sticks. Okay, cool. You spend some money on there, but that's where they stop. So then they say, okay, let's do another batch of creatives. Let's do something new. But this is really expensive, right? And it's like trying to, shoot with a gun and you don't really have an aim, right? It's just wasting a lot of resources in the process. So what did I start doing, and now what am I teaching other brands to do? And what do we do in my own brands? So what we do is basically we say, in the beginning, we know nothing, okay? I know we did the product, we are the producers, but still we're selling to the customer, finally. So we have to operate as if we don't know anything about our product, right? So the first thing is really to do research, okay? What are, like, from the perspective of somebody that is in my target audience, what is actually, like, why would they buy my product? Okay, so the very first thing that we're trying to identify are angles. Okay, first of all, identify. Okay, so we're trying to identify angles. Example is you have like your, I don't know, skincare cream, for example. It's a very simple example. You have a skincare cream. This skincare cream helps against acne. This helps against what else? Wrinkles and dark spots. Okay, dark spots. Those are 3 different angles and 3 different potential target audiences. Now, the next step is basically to validate these angles, right? Because those are just, those are hypotheses. I don't know if, you know, acne is going to work for my product, for my brand, or dark spots is going to work for my product and my brand. If my product can solve all of these, I have to now validate what is actually the one that is working the best. And that gives me data so that I know, okay, it makes sense to do this here. It makes sense to spend like 5K a month on content, right? Or 10K a month on content. Before I do this kind of investment, I want to understand, do I see any data backing up that dark spots is my angle, okay? So the second thing is basically to validate. Right? So first we do research, then we validate the research. And the validation, I always have the same process, very simple. You put all of these, like you identify the angles, and then you basically have creatives that show your product, show a little bit of social proof on the bottom, and on top you have one headline, which is basically like when somebody of your audience, like of this angle, reads this message, they will internally go, yes, that's me, right? So those could be testimonials of customers, for example, that say, I tried everything against my dark spots, but this is the only thing that worked, okay? If somebody has dark spots, they would basically raise their hand and say, yeah, this is me, this is interesting, right? And then you do this for all of the angles, so you will end up with 15 to 40 different image creatives, so static ads. And then you test all of them against each other and look at the data, right? Look at the data. What of these testimonials, which of the angles actually works best? And that's where you then go ahead and basically produce different types of creatives, right? So this is where UGC comes into play, right? Or founder ads, okay. Different styles of ads, right? So also like just short video ads, okay. But then the beauty of this is that you've already validated the angle, right? So you will only do this here once you have validation. So you will not produce like a shit ton of creatives and pay, I don't know how much money for angles that actually don't work for your product. And this is something that, again, will set you apart from your competitors, right? This is just what I don't see a lot of brands doing this in a proper way. And I see a lot of brands just like wasting a lot of money and time and resource. You have to think like UGC creatives, that sometimes takes like, I don't know, 3 weeks until you get a video, right? And this is just way faster, way more efficient, way more lean. And you will have a certain pre-confirmation that, hey, now I'm producing all of these creatives, but I'm producing it for these people because I have validated that before. Okay, so very important research, validate, no guesswork, not going in front of the whiteboard. That's another thing that I see that brands are saying, oh, well, our product could work for audience XYZ. Let's try this, right? This is the sure way to just lose money. You could get lucky, but that's not the strategy. We don't want to get lucky. We want to have a process behind so that we can repeat it over and over again for any product that we want. Okay? So yeah, definitely, I hope that was clear. The benefit of validation was clear, right? And research process, proper validation process, and then basically going into production. Okay, and this obviously is the same for many things in your business. Don't just assume things, but really validate them, right? Try to get data on it. And then decide based off of that what the next steps are and should be. Okay, step number 4, double down. Double down. What do I mean by that? So by now, we have a quick summary. We have a first order profitability, okay? So we have an offer that allows us to be profitable on the first sale. Then we've eliminated all of this stuff about having 10 channels at the same time. We have one push channel, which most likely is going to be Meta, one pull channel, which most likely is going to be Google, that we focus on. No more other distractions. Third thing, we validate and we test those assumptions from the research, and instead of guessing, and this way we're saving tons of money, we're just way faster than our competitors. And the last step is to double down on what's working. And I'll tell you a quick story about this. So this is something I see a brand I tell you a story about a brand that came to me. We were doing like an audit. That's what I usually do. In the beginning, I do an audit. I just want to understand what happened in the account, what kind of creatives were they running, what was the process behind getting these creatives, right? So what we talked about earlier. And then what I saw in the audit is basically that I looked at all of the ads, right? This is something that I always do. What do we spend most of the money on, okay? And what are the ads that they spend the most money on? And what I saw is that they had like a pretty clear winner that almost took up all of the spend. That was their best ad that they had running. And then I asked, okay, like what did you do to let's say maximize this effect, right? And they said, well, what do you mean by maximizing? I mean, every month we just do new creatives, right? So we have like a batch 1, this is month 1, then we have another batch, month 2, then we have another batch, this is month 3, okay? And then I said, okay, but what if you have like a winner here in batch 1, and this thing is just going crazy. Do you consider that in batch 2 and batch 3? I said, no, we never really thought about it because it's boring. We don't want to do the same stuff over and over again. And this here is a big trigger word for me because I hear this so many times, and it's so important to talk about this. That's why I put it there. That's why I put it at number 4. Once you find stuff that is working, you have to double down on it. And you have to take this winning concept or angle or whatever it is, and you have to do everything to squeeze it out as much as possible. Because the hardest part of all of this is to find something that is working. So I told you how to get there more efficiently, yes, but still, this is the hardest part. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That's the hardest part. To find the winning product, to find the winning offer, to find the winning communication, so the angle, to get all of this working, that's the hardest part. But once you have it, that's where it starts to be boring. But from my experience, every time things start to get boring, that's where you start to make money. Okay? So every time that things start to get boring or are boring, that's when you start making money. And why is that? Because, as I said, the hard part is to finding something that is working. But once you found something, your only job is really just to create iterations of this winner. And that's basically 80% of your creative tasks, let's say, okay? So your job will be to do many iterations of the same thing. So let's say you have a creative, which is like a UGC that is working, okay? UGC creative is crushing like crazy, making you money, super profitable. Number one, obviously you scale it up, right? That's like, I don't even have to talk about that. But then instead of doing like random new UGC stuff or other types of creatives just because we think it's always the same stuff, as long as something is making money, you don't want to touch it. You just want to like maximize it, okay? So here, let's say we have a UGC that works. I take the same exact script and I give it to 5 to 10 new creators, okay? That are also in my target audience, but just look different. But they do the exact same script as the one that the winner had, okay? So all of a sudden, I have 5 new ads. Next thing, I take the same exact ad. I'm just going to show you a couple of examples. I'm taking the same exact ad. This is basically the main script. And here I create 10 different beginnings, 10 different hooks. Same exact script. The first 3 to 5 seconds, I only exchange the first 3 to 5 seconds. Okay? Same exact script, but just 10 different ways to hook people in. Next thing, I take this same exact ad and I basically create 10 different visual hooks. So it's the same exact sentence that they say. So for example, I struggled with acne all my life. Okay, this is the winning hook, written hook. Then I create 10 different visual hooks. So this could be like a split screen, for example, where I have like a person that has acne here, and then I have a product or like a reverse shot or something like that. Then I have another visual one that is, I don't know, like just super fast cut, like 3 to 5 different scenes, right? Then I have a before and after, right? So there are many, many ways to make more out of this winning concept, right? Another thing would be to reshoot the same ads, but just with different scenes, right? Just with different B-roll. It's the same script, but you just switch out the visuals, right? So as you can see, like this work, this at some point will be like 60 to 80% of the work is just making more of these winning types, understanding why something is winning and just recreating it in different ways, right? And this is what a lot of brands are missing out on. And it might be that now, currently, you have ads that are working, but you're focusing on getting these new ads. And there's like there's a little anecdote there from Henry Ford, right? Henry Ford, obviously like icon, legend when it comes to like building businesses and building companies. And they had a whiteboard like this in their office. And he was walking by this whiteboard every single day and saw like an ad campaign. And after a couple of weeks or even months, he went to his sales guy or marketing guy, went to his marketing guy and told him, man, can we just stop running these ads? Like I'm getting bored of this. The people will get bored of that. And the marketing guy replied, Mr. Ford, we haven't even run this campaign yet, right? It's not even public. And that's a great way to explain what happens in a lot of businesses. we as business owners, we have our perspective on things, right? So we always, we think about this all the time. We see these UGC videos all the time. But this doesn't really matter. It doesn't mean that the market has seen them enough. And that's a very important important to distinguish that, right? It's our internal view and it's the external market view. And as long as you have the data and as long as things are working, you don't need to try to create something new. You don't need to. As long as it's scalable, as long as the market demands it and it's working, you just need to do more of the stuff that is working, okay? So I gave you a couple of ideas on how to do that. Obviously there are more, but this just to show you that this point is very, very important. And this is actually where you will start making money because it's boring. I mean, for me, it's not boring, but for some people, this sounds boring, just doing the same thing over and over again. But I can tell you countless examples of, for example, a founder ad that we found that was crushing. For example, for one of my brands that went to 1 million a month, that I helped get to 1 million a month. One of their winning concepts is a founder ad. And basically what we've done with this founder ad is just find different versions of the same ad, either these beginnings or different B-roll or slightly different concepts. And this enabled them to run this winning ad for months, right? So this is running for over 6 months, just in different styles and variations. But if you don't do this, you're just always going to go back to zero and you have to start again and find something new again, right? So make sure that you make the most out of your winners. Okay, and there you have it. Let's see if I fall over this thing one more time. Okay, 4 steps to scale your e-commerce brand to 1 million a month. Let's do a quick recap. First order profitability, make sure that you have a high AOV, make sure that you use a little more sophisticated funnels. You remember the 99%, 1%, 0.1%. Educate the people before you sell them. Second thing, 1 push channel, 1 pull channel. No Pinterest, TikTok, all of this stuff at the same time doesn't work, right? Just distracts you and keeps you on this route. Next thing, test and validate versus guessing, right? Stop guessing, make assumptions based off of research, then validate them, and then go into production when it comes to creatives, landing pages, whatever it is. And the last thing, double down on what's working. This is really something where 90% of the scale and profit lies in. If you just stick to what's working, you double down, it gets boring, but you're going to make a lot of money, okay? So that's the way I scaled my brand to over 500K, up to almost 1 million now with one of my brands. And I helped other brand owners to scale to 1 million a month. This is also I help brands that are at 1 million a month already to just take things in-house and do all of this process again for themselves and scale even higher. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Let me know in the comments. See you on the next one. Bye.